Hi, this is Doli for part 2 of my contributions to our short-term rental. So today we're at the guest house at the Oasis, and I wanted to go through some things that we have here. So as Mark has mentioned multiple times, this Nix Play is worth its weight in gold. So basically he can adjust this remotely, and it gives all the information someone might want to know about the property. And again, he goes into more detail with this in his course on VRBOutstanding.com. So this is another giclée that, excuse the light in the way. This is actually from photographs that we took in Miami of the sunrise. Since in Miami you're on the Atlantic, so we see the sunrise there. So this is a giclée also, which is a print on canvas with thicker ink that looks more like oil paint. But this one in particular, this is identical size to the original oil painting. It is 5 feet tall by 4 feet wide. And if you had them side by side, you couldn't tell the difference. But the difference for this, as far as a giclée is concerned, this is an embellished giclée, which means that I actually took oil paint and painted over certain areas of this. And because of that, in this particular giclée, this has more of a three-dimensional look, especially in the foam, because that is oil paint and not the giclée print. So let's move around this way. And of course, for all of the buildings on the Oasis, the view is what's the most important. So the walls here are not white, believe it or not. This is a very pale greenish blue color that we'll go into detail in just a minute. So let's walk around this way. We had an extra computer at our house. It was actually my father's, who never used it. And we also had a walnut colored console table. So we had this at our house. It was kind of in the corner. I didn't even particularly like it that much, the color that it was. So the last time we were here, we packed it up and we brought it down. But before I packed it up, I painted it. And I also found this inexpensive bench from Home Goods that was also a dark color that I painted as well. So as far as painting this console table, I used Beyond Paint All-in-One. It will cover in one coat. It's great. It has a pudding consistency. I found that I had to put multiple coats on this, however, to cover that color. But the only thing you really need to do with this particular brand of paint is clean the item. You don't have to sand, which is important, and you don't have to prime, although you may need to do extra coats. They also have a product that is a sealer that this needs to dry for, I would recommend a week. Let it dry for a week. Between coats, you can let it go 45 minutes, but between the paint and the top coat, it needs to be about a week. So this has that to protect it. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to bump into it and give us tiny little chips on here off the paint, okay? So you can see the color coming through there. So this is one of the things that I have extra paint. I'll get one of my artist brushes, which is very small, and I'll just dab it. No wide strokes, because sometimes that will show. Just dabbing it up. And that's the same thing that you can do with white cabinets if you have the same color. Now, the problem with that is that they might not match perfectly, but a white that doesn't match a white is much better than a dark that shows up much more. And so we have my father's computer. We had very little space, and this was perfect for this space. Not only if people don't need to use it, they can keep the stool in here, but this is also a very small stool. So it needed to be small, and I had another one with this, but it was wider, and so unfortunately people don't always take as good care of your short-term rental as they would their own. And I knew that if I had a wider bench, they would scuff up both sides of my console table. So that's why I chose this particularly small stool that we can fit underneath and out of the way. Mark also had a brilliant idea. Now Mark's a businessman too. So he's in IT, so he needs to be able to scan documents and do other things even when he's on vacation. So we included this not only for our use, but for our guests' use. And this is a paint. This is an original oil. This is not a print. And if you remember what I said last week, I like to include paintings of the property. So these are my favorite palm trees, which are right outside the door here. So this is a view of the sunrise from the oasis. And the small one here is my favorite lone palm that I paint all the time. This is our outdoor furniture, and our pool is over here if you were to see the full scene. So follow me over this way. So these are relatively new cabinets, not like the cabinets in the main house, which are from 1959. But these are relatively new cabinets. I believe they replaced these after Hurricane Irma in 2017. So these are new, but even so, people have been living here and they were scuffed in multiple areas. So I had some white semi-gloss paint, actually white, this was satin paint that I just dabbed on the scratches where you'll get a lot of, you'll get edges that show, like this one I haven't touched up, but little things like that. That's not enough that I'd bother doing anything with it, but sometimes it's a lot more obvious. So this again this is another new air conditioner unit, which was smaller than the original, but I had to patch the walls and also touch up the paint. Now I'm going to have you come around this way, and I'll show you some other reasons why you need to touch up paint. If you have scuffs all over your walls, and believe me, guests will scuff your walls, and that looks unsightly and it doesn't look clean. Cleanliness is one of the major things that guests will rate you on. So if you look over here, this was freshly painted the last time I was here, just a couple months ago. But apparently they splattered something all over the wall. I scrubbed it, it wouldn't come off. My cleaner scrubbed it, couldn't come off. So in this case, I need to use paint to touch this up. Now, easier said than done, so let me go through what you need to know about paint. So, I mean, it's obvious, but one of the things is the color. So they have a device called a NYX Mini sensor, and basically it's about the size of my hand and narrow. You link it with a phone app, and you turn it on and put it up against the wall, and you occlude it so that it has a special light that has a spectrophotometer or something in it that actually determines what the mixture of colors is. Okay, so that will at least start you in the right direction. They'll give you manufacturers and the colors that match with that manufacturer, but it's not 100%. So the other reason why that you need to match your manufacturer is the sheen. Different manufacturers have a different amount of sheen for especially satins, and they will stick out like a sore thumb from certain lighting areas if you're off. So you don't want that. It's like having if you just wipe down a dry wall and it's wet, you'll see that sheen difference. That's basically a permanent thing when you have the wrong sheen on your paint. So for this one in particular, I had to put my artist hat on because we could not find the actual match. So it's a Sherwin-Williams paint. We knew that much. It was kind of a little detective work. It matched with Glimmer, is the name of the paint that was closest to it. However, Glimmer was too dark, so I had to actually mix different variations of white with that, and 1-to-1 worked, and now I'm able to match that. So I keep some of that paint on hand, and I will be touching that up, and I'll show you some other minor scuffs. And this was just from one group of people staying in the house. It happens. For instance, especially with furniture, but people, they're going to touch your walls. They're going to leave dirty, handprints. They're going to nick your walls. I've tried wiping that off. It doesn't come off, and that's unsightly. So that's something else we need to fix. So another brilliant idea of my husband's was this had an accordion door here, and it was broken by 2 different sets of guests, and which means it was just too flimsy for this space. So he bought these from Home Depot, and it's like the in thing, and they're white and they're perfect. So again, I'm looking at this wall, I'm seeing fingerprints. I'm seeing, smudges. Come this way and come look at the the floorboard from here. People invariably are kicking here, and they've even knocked off some of the plaster. Now, this home is made out of solid concrete, pretty much 18 inches. So there's a layer of plaster on there that they've knocked off. They've knocked it off here. So these are things that I will be working on while we're here at the Oasis. But when you have paint that matches in sheen and color, you're golden. It'll take care of that. So those are some of the things that I contribute to our short-term rentals. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. Come this way. So I'm able, as an artist, I don't expect everyone to be able to do this, but I thought I'd just give you an example. We'll show pictures in the corner here. I have a long-term rental that I needed to sell to use a 1031 exchange to buy this property. And it had reddish brown bricks, but they varied in colors. And for some reason, the renter decided to spill streaks of white paint along the front, which totally messes up your curb appeal. The pressure washer couldn't get it off, even when he used chemicals, couldn't scrape it off. It was on there for good. And what I did, I can match any color with my oil paints. I mean, and when it's a small area, we did it. So what I did was, especially since we wanted to sell this property, I used my oil paints and matched the variations in colors, and this is the final result. You can't, in my opinion, unless you look up close, you won't even notice it. So this concludes this episode of VRB Outstanding. Thank you for watching. Please click the subscribe and like button if you like this, and my husband will see you next week.